on AFR.net on the web, and you can listen to us 24/7 online there. Jim?
Absolutely. Joining us now is John R. Lott, Jr. Dr. Lott has been a researcher, teacher for many years. He's taught at Chicago, Yale, and Stanford, as well as UCLA, Wharton, and Rice. He was also the chief economist at the United States Sentencing Commission during 1988 and 89. Dr. Lott, we want to talk about your book today, Dumbing Down the Courts, How Politics Keep the Smartest Judges Off the Bench. Dr. Lott, welcome to today's issues.
Dr. Lott, you there?
Hi, how you doing?
We're well.
Good. John R. Lott with us. Dumbing Down the Courts, the title of the book, How Politics Keeps the Smartest Judges Off the Bench. Give us an overview of this, if you would.
Sure. Well, I originally started working on this because of all the confirmation battles that people are familiar with, especially for the Supreme Court, and how vicious and drawn out they are. But while I was looking through it, one thing was pretty obvious, that the nominees who have by far the hardest time getting confirmed are also the smartest nominees. Let me ask you a question to give you an example. Have either of you two, while you've been talk show hosts, ever served on a jury? My guess is you haven't.
I have not. I had a do you call it an invitation or a subpoena?
Subpoena.
Right, you've been called up to do it, but
it wasn't exactly an invitation, but
right.
Anyway, I was supposed to, but I had to be out of town on business, and the judge let me out of the. Anyway,
right. Well, my guess is they would strike you from being on a jury anyway.
Okay.
And you go talk to other radio talk show hosts, and I'm sure they'll tell you that when they get called up, they're struck. And the reason is pretty simple, and that is you make your living being persuasive. You guys are very articulate individuals, and so the concern that a lawyer who might think you're maybe tilted against them would have is that you may persuade other people on the panel there, other jurors, to see things your way. And so if lawyers on one side or the other think that you may even be slightly tilting against them, they're going to use their challenge to strike you from the jury. They may even strike you versus somebody who they're even more sure is biased, because you're worth 2, 3, 4 votes on the jury. And the same thing is true with regard to judges. It's obviously that judge's vote matters, but it also matters whether or not he can go and persuade other judges that may be on his panel, if you're on appeals court or a Supreme Court, as well as the fact that they can write opinions that can influence judges all across the country. And so there's a lot more at stake. The reason why battles have gotten so much more confrontational over time is as the federal government has grown, the number of cases that go before the courts has soared since 1960. The growth of cases that go to appeals courts has grown 12 times faster than the growth of population over that time. But so more is at stake over who you put on the courts, but you're particularly going to be most concerned about the ones that can be the most influential. I'll give you a simple number here. If you look at appeals court nominees, people who go to a top 10 law school and graduate from the top 10% of their class, they take about 70% longer to get through the confirmation process than someone who didn't go to a top 10 school and also did not do particularly well at the school that they came from.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I'm sorry. You're listening to the program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Our guest is John R. Lott, Dumbing Down the Courts, How Politics Keep the Smartest Judges Off the Bench. And you have a couple of pretty good recommendations that we have for folks that would encourage others to read the book. One of those is former appeals court judge and Supreme Court nominee Robert Bork, as well as a former deputy White House counsel for President Clinton. And the one I like about that, it says, unlike many partisan works on the subject, John Lott does not lay the blame of our current troubles on one party's doorstep, but demonstrates there's more than enough fault to go around. And that is how you approach this book, isn't it? It's not a matter of just the Democrats' fault or the Republicans' fault, but it's almost like neither party want the smartest guy up for the job.
Right, well, they don't want your smartest guy, the other guy's smartest guy on the job there. I think smart Republicans have a somewhat more difficult time getting confirmed than smart Democrats do, but that's exactly right, that it's something that afflicts nominees from both parties. And it makes a real difference in terms of how the courts operate, I think, over time. You really see a decline in the quality of judges in terms of kind of their legal skills over the last 4 decades.
John, tell me if this all seemed to start, at least the fights over Supreme Court nominees, when Ronald Reagan nominated Robert Bork. And from then on, especially 4 or 5 of them we could name, especially the Democrats really fought to keep the Republican president's nominees off the court. In the case of Robert Bork, yeah, he was highly intelligent and highly credentialed, and that the Democrats didn't want him, being on the Supreme Court, so they borked him. They blocked him. Is that when this all kind of really started, at least recently?
Well, it's been more gradual process over time, but surely Bork's case, and I have to say I'm very honored that he wrote the blurb for the book, or one of the blurbs. He was very ill. He died last year right after he wrote the blurb, and but yet, it was important enough to him that he, even though he was dying, that he took the time to look through the book and gave me comments and was nice enough to write that strong blurb for it. But obviously it's something that's touched him. I mean, I think whether you're a Democrat or a Republican lawyer, if you're knowledgeable, you'll recognize that Bork would have been probably the most brilliant person on the Supreme Court now, and one of the brightest people to ever have served on the Supreme Court. And so because he would have been so influential, I think his opponents, like Senator Kennedy from Massachusetts, the late Senator Kennedy, and others were willing to pull out all the stops and mischaracterize his beliefs and other things in order to try to demonize him there.
And they did. Succeeded. And they did. It worked.
Right.
I mean, they did demonize him, and it did work, and he was blocked. I've forgotten what happened there. Did they ever vote on him?
Yeah, they did. Confirmation, it took 114 days from nomination to get to the vote, and he was voted down by the Senate. Democrats controlled the Senate, and they pretty much voted along party lines. The interesting thing is Rehnquist and Scalia were confirmed the previous year in 1986. And my guess is if the Democrats had controlled the Senate at that time, they would have been defeated. So, I don't think Scalia now could be nominated and confirmed on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It just shows how things have changed over time, how much more confrontational this has been. But, you haven't seen these types of attacks on Democratic Supreme Court nominees. So,
well, in particular, don't you think that with Robert Bork, the Democrats, they are they're one of their staunchest allies is what people would call the pro-abortion or pro-choice groups, and they were afraid that Bork would rule to overturn Roe versus Wade. And
well, that's what they say. I don't really think. Let me give you a counterexample. Obviously Democrats do care very strongly about abortion, any restrictions, even parental notification or what have you. But let me give you a counterexample. Harriet Miers, when she was nominated in 2005 by George W. Bush, the one position that everybody knew that she had strong views on was abortion. Very strongly against abortion. And yet Democrats came out strongly for her. And you can't find comments from Democrats who opposed her nomination. What you can find is comments from Republicans who were very concerned about her nomination, and that's what finally caused it to be withdrawn. What the Republicans were hoping for was another person who valued the same things on abortion, but was much smarter. And the types of questions that the Republicans were planning on asking were questions that any law student should hopefully be able to answer. And it was the threat of those types of questions and the opposition from Republicans that she wasn't that smart. I mean, I'm sure she's a very nice person, but she wasn't the type of person that was going to be able to go and convince other people on the Supreme Court about arguments that her nomination was withdrawn.
This is Today's Issues on American Family Radio. John, let me ask you, why is it that Democrats, and we are talking to you about your book, Dumbing Down the Courts, How Politics Keeps the Smartest Judges Off the Bench. Why is it that Democrats do a better job of blocking the judges that they don't, or the jurists that they don't want on the bench, than the Republicans do?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it has something to do with the fact that Republicans have generally believed the president should have his choice on who he wants to put on the courts or make other appointments for. Democrats have just been willing to fight more strongly. But why Democrats are willing to make the types of attacks? I mean, I suppose the most amazing thing about some of these attacks, like the attacks on Robert Bork that we were talking about, is how they were just, willing to lie about the person's character and what he believes and things like that. And for some reason, I hope it's good reasons, but, it's just some people are not willing to lie and or find it much more difficult to do so. And so that limits how much you can kind of attack somebody else. If you're willing to go and make up anything, going and saying that, you support racism or that you support people dying in back alleys or other types of things, it just, the types of attacks that Kennedy and others made on Bork were just amazing. And the media often just reported them without criticism.
Well, yeah, and the media, many in the media are ideological partners with the Democrats, so they're gonna side with them, maybe overtly and sometimes but try to pretend it's real journalism.
Yeah, right.
I want to ask you something about related to that. We're talking about the makeup of the Supreme Court today is 4-4-1, basically 4 liberals, 4 conservatives, and 1. John Roberts, he did go, independent, if you will, on Obamacare, but basically it's 4 conservatives, 4 liberals, and 1 independent, Anthony Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And by independent, I mean you can't ever tell where he's going to come down on an issue. But going back here, you mentioned that most Republicans believe that it is the president's prerogative constitutionally. It is his.
Mm-hmm.
It's his choice on who to sit on the federal bench, not only the Supreme Court, but the federal appellate court, which is very important because most cases never reach the Supreme Court. But if the Republican presidents had been able to get through their nominees, it would be an altogether different America than and Supreme Court than what we're existing today. It's amazing to me because the Republicans, what they did, when Robert Bork was borked, then he selected Anthony Kennedy,
right,
which today is the guy who's the independent. We got Justice Souter.
Well, Kennedy was his third choice.
So
I mean, you had Bork, and then you had Ginsburg, and then I think Reagan went with somebody who he thought would be relatively easy to confirm after those two problem